Alright, if you've been following us on the Twitterverse, then you would know that yes, Tic Tac has in fact watched this movie, though he's gone off and found himself engaged, so we're going to be waiting a little while for his review. Alright, Squeak's here, and yeah, I'm the only lone reviewer, he's not going to pop in. So it may be some time before Tic Tac is once again loaned to us so we can get a review out here, but I thought about asking Skittles, though at the very start of this movie, she had questioned me where Loki fits in as Gandalf's brother. And then at the end of the movie, she proceeded to tell me how Gollum resembled Sheldon from Big Bang. Alright, The Hobbit, and yes, this is a prequel to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and in itself, it's going to be another trilogy. Despite the fact that the book only being about a 50-page turner, it's like literally that big. For those of you who watched the original trilogy of Lord of the Rings, it follows Bilbo Baggins, the old Hobbit in the Lord of the Rings trilogy that was, I think, really only in the first movie. But it follows his backdrop and his story, so how everything kind of comes to be. It's just his adventures, and he's kind of recounting it to Frodo, and that's kind of how the story takes off and starts. For those of you who watched the other Lord of the Rings trilogy, there had been a lot of walking. Yes, quite a bit of walking. And this movie does it too. So you would think that the 48 frames per second is going to speed up this walking a little bit because it's twice the speed and the walking is going to be reduced. Well, you would think that. They still do quite a bit of walking in this movie, though I have to comment on it because I did feel it did a major improvement on this compared to the very first movie, especially the first movie, but also the second movie. When I was watching them, I'll be honest with you, I did not care whatsoever what was going on with the Hobbits and their walk story. I was way more interested in everything else that was happening in the movie. However, in this one, we're centered around only the one story. It's just around the Hobbit and his walk story. But, like I said, this one is way more entertaining as far as just walking to some destination. Now, despite the fact that I kind of made fun of Skittles earlier, she did mention that this was an entertaining movie for her. She hasn't watched the original trilogy. I know, people. I know. Travesty. I know. She hasn't watched Jurassic Park either, though, so we got somewhere to start with her. I know. But she did like this movie, and she thought it was really interesting. I have to go ahead and say, if you haven't watched the original Lord of the Rings movie, you can still watch this one and still be entertained. Though, for those of you who watched the original trilogy, it is piecing together a lot of the story and a lot of the pieces that, because not necessarily there were really questions unanswered in the first trilogy, but they kind of dug and give you more to certain things, so it's kind of like a why things happen the way they did. But for those of you who are really big fans, you probably read the book and you already know what's going to go on anyway. Me, I get to still be entertained. I wait for the next two movies to come out, and it still should be entertaining for me. Joke's on you, book readers. As far as acting goes, if you've seen the first trilogy, it's exactly the same. It's the same style, nothing's changed, Gandalf's exactly the same. I mean, it's been a few years, but he still looks exactly the same. The rest of them that are reprising their roles, Hugo Weaving, etc., they're also doing the exact same style, same role. They don't try and add more to it. They don't mess what's already been put forth for us and what's a proven success. Now, on to that 48 frames per second thing. It is a bit different. It does cause for a different style of fight scenes, basically. When you're seeing them fight, it's all done slow motion so that the 48 frames per second can actually fit in the fight scenes. But to go into really high-tech, gizmo, gadgety, I'll leave that to Tack once we get him loaned to us, and he'll kind of go over all that stuff for you, the 48 frames. As far as the dunce goes, I'm going to go ahead and say my 48 frames for dummies textbook, that it does do some different look and feel, nothing different than you'd see if you'd watch 3D for the very first time. On to rating time. As for now, this one gets a 2.5 out of a possible 5 for rabbit sleighs, because I'm pretty sure it's Mid-Earth's version of a Ferrari Enzo. On to the next review.